Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network.
'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven.
A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at ubnradio.com.
To let myself is the only way to be.
Welcome. Hello, everybody. I'm putting my headset in. It fell out. Welcome to our show. We're Del and Debbie, Mind, Body, Soul, and we're invigorating talk on health and well-being. I started with our old tagline here, and we're here at UBN. We are on our third show. We welcome everybody. I am one of your co-hosts. I am Debbie Carlin Boyle. I am certified as a fitness instructor, a personal trainer, and a health and nutrition coach. I try to help people put balance into their life with all the things that feed us in addition to the food on our plate. And then my co-host right here.
Hello, I'm the other half of Del and Debbie, and I'm Del Lady Jones. I'm a certified transformational life coach, and my background is in spiritual psychology and the three principles. And I specialize in the areas of personal growth, relationships, and particularly recovery from narcissistic abuse. And today's show, oh my goodness, we are so excited. This is really going to be, well, the subject is finding your inner power, which is, clearly very close to Debbie and I's heart. And we are so thrilled. We have the most amazing guest today. But before I introduce her, she's actually one of the top nation's inspirational speakers and authors. And we have Peggy O'Neill here, and we are so thrilled. But I'm going to give you a bit, before we meet her, we're going to talk a little bit about your background. And I know that you came from the field of psychotherapy, and one of your main focuses is, I hear, being a little person living in a big world.
Yes.
And you... This leads to you do personal empowerment talks, and you celebrate diversity, and you do enhancing professional performance.
Yes.
Yes, all of that.
All
and
of
I know,
that.
and you've worked with some of the biggest names in the industry. I mean, I know you've done FEMA, Chase Bank, Texaco, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, and the list goes on. You can name the rest of them. I could be here all day, but there are tons of them. And you've also authored 2 books, Walking Tall, Overcoming Inner Smallness, no matter what size you are, and Little Squarehead, which is a children's book.
Yes.
So you're a very busy lady, obviously, and we're so thrilled you made the time to be with us today. And
welcome Peggy to our show. Round of applause for making it. We know you don't live close, and we really do appreciate you coming all this way, all the way deep into Hollywood. We're here at the Sunset Gower Studios, and it's not easy to get to in the middle of a weekday, so we really appreciate it.
I call it the beast of the belly.
The beast of the belly, yes.
Exactly.
We were just talking about that.
No wonder why you live where you do live.
Yes.
Beautiful Ojai. Yes.
Before we go into where you're at now, we want to go back to the beginnings and where you started and tell us a little bit about your story, your personal story.
Yeah.
So,
What
if you will.
What got you here today?
So, I'm not standing up, but maybe people can notice that I am a little person, which means I'm under 4 feet tall, which means I'm 3 feet 8 inches tall. And I have been this way since I was about 12. Anyway, a lot of people, when they hear that I'm a little person, one of the first questions that come up is like, well, what about your family? And I happen to come from a family of great diversity. And my parents are average size. My oldest brother is also a little person. I have 2 average-sized sisters, and then I was the baby, and also I'm short-statured. So we got sort of a mix, and in most families, there's only one little person, and it happens by a mutation in a gene that creates a dominant gene in the carrier. And in my case, my parents both had a recessive gene, sort of like brown-eyed parents having a blue-eyed child. So, so that's how the genetics works out. And it made a mix for a very interesting life in terms of being a person with a slight disability, being a person of significant physical difference, and being mainstreamed. So it was mainstreamed in school and camp and all of that, and a lot of that was all great and good and really helped me sort of develop an identity of I belong and I'm part of this whole thing that's going on around me, which is all great. And then there were other issues like, my parents' fear of what's her life going to be. How can she? My parents were both very athletic oriented. They were competitive athletes and when they were younger, and my mother continued on with competitive golf up until her death when she was about 75. So and my father played polo. He was a hockey player. So they were very much into athletics. So when I came around, it was like, okay, my sisters and brothers were doing all these sports, and what was I going to do? And luckily, we found that I could do figure skating actually equally as well. They didn't have Special Olympics when I was a little kid because I'm in my early 60s now, and so I started to skate when I was 3, and I loved it. And then by 6, I was taking lessons, and by 9, I had talked my mom into getting me private lessons, and I got this phenomenal, like from heaven coach. His name is Peter Collin, and he became my surrogate dad and the savior of my life. And he never, ever once insinuated in any way, in any level, that I in any way had any kind of less capacity than anybody else. His mantra to me was, you can be a national champion if you're willing to work hard enough.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Which is what you would say to anybody no matter what.
Exactly.
Exactly. Where was this? Where'd you grow up?
In Cleveland.
This is in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happens from there? Did you actually start competing in
I
ice
did.
skating?
I did.
You did.
I did.
Did you win?
Yeah, I did. I won some, and I did singles, and then I also had a tall, thin gal. My best friend, Allison Ford, she looked like Sandra Bullock, but more beautiful. And Allison will love that. And she was my skating partner. And we did all of these tricks that were sort of a play off of her tall, slender, and my short, stout.
Fun.
And she'd do a spread eagle, and I'd do a shoot the duck through.
My God,
and
this sounds fabulous.
She'd be doing a camel spin, and I'd be going around under her leg. And we had all these hilarious things, and people were like grasping at themselves because they were like afraid I was going to kill myself. So it was entertaining. It was great, and it was a lot of fun. And there were a lot of difficulties during that time also. I mean, I don't make it sound like I had it was easy street. It was not.
Did you find it easier having at least another sibling that No, it didn't help.
No, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, don't.
Yeah.
You answer, yeah.
In our household, I grew up in the mid-50s, mid-60s, and in our household, it wasn't okay to talk about it. We didn't say...
a taboo subject?
Yes.
To talk about?
We didn't talk about it. We didn't say words like little person, dwarf, whatever the words were. And nobody really mentioned it. It wasn't brought out in the open.
Wow.
And my brother and I think both took to a coping mechanism to I'm just going to do my best to blend in. I'm going to sort of pretend like I'm like everybody else and go for it.
Wow.
And that went pretty well until, kind of like stuff
Puberty?
started. Yeah.
Puberty.
Then
It's always when things happen, no matter what the setback is, or what the thing that isn't quote unquote supposed to be, normal for a family. That's puberty always sets things off, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, and there were also things I just want to mention in my very early, my mother had some difficulty. The doctors told it would never happen again, and she had some really difficult times, probably some postpartum, and there was a lot of separation between us during those early times, and so just from therapy, I know that there was a lot of difficulty in the bonding, attachment, all of that stuff. And then when I started to go to school, of course, there was a lot of teasing, name calling. When there weren't adults around, it was, and people, and like my friend, like when I was alone and there were no adults around, I was just target for badness.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
And-
weren't kind back then. I grew up. I'm the same age as you, and I grew up, in the '60s as well, in my school years, and they were so mean to me. I was
Yeah.
a skinny kid with big lips, and they called me the worst names. I was bullied all the way through, and I just, it was just, they were just not nice.
Yeah.
Kids were just not nice in the '60s.
It's so interesting. Yeah, I want to hear more about your
Yes.
story, and then I'll add some of mine. Colorful
But
childhood
I would
too.
say, so you said when you were around 9 and you discovered skating, did you find that to be an outlet for you, and not an escape, but a way to really know that you mattered and that you had capabilities and talents, and all that rhetoric out there, all that bull that was coming your way was just bull?
I would say that there's like a teeter-totter or a scale.
Yeah.
On one side, there's the negative reinforcement or the negative reflection, the teasing, the name calling, the condescension, all of that, and that sort of has a certain kind of weight. And then I feel so lucky that I actually got involved in a sport where I could win. Like anytime you can like experience winning is really fantastic for your self-esteem. And so I had another set of experiences that helped to balance that to some
That's what I
extent.
was-
But I would say that this side
Weighed a little heavier.
has been always very challenged, even now. Even now.
Yeah.
That
Well, what I
yeah.
found fascinating in reading some of the articles on you, you took that being teased and being bullied as a child, and you learnt to detach from the opinion of others, which I find fascinating. Now, did you
So
do that after therapy? Because I was just going to say, because to have that perspective as a young child is very rare.
Yeah, no,
No,
it was not as a child. It
okay,
was
good,
into
yeah.
my mid-30s by the time
Yeah.
I actually had the experience of being separate from my conditioning, all of that inlay of people's responses to me, my parents' unconscious, unspoken reaction to me, their fear about my life, my fear about my own life, all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
And
took
what
some time.
And what did you discover when that was suddenly the revelation that you didn't have to be attached to what people were saying and you could detach from? What did you discover about you and yourself at that point?
I think I discovered the best thing anyone could ever discover.
Self-love.
I'm free.
Oh, you're free. Wow.
You gave yourself freedom.
I'm free. I'm free of having to
What other people think.
what other people think. I'm free of having to conform. I'm free of having to compare. I'm free of having to be good enough. I'm free of all the efforting that I've been trying to do to be enough.
Yeah.
So
And
and-
everybody needs to
Yeah.
be free from
Of
the
course.
things that
Yeah.
keep them, that hold them back. You just
Yeah.
have a very, specific thing that you grew up with that held you
I
back.
mean, I was exactly sharing that, we're all around the same age. I'm 59, and growing up in Wales in the 60s was I was illegitimate. My father, but back then it was a very sort of Methodist Bible thumping community, and so we weren't, wearing our label on the outside, but on the inside, all the community knew, the other children knew. They called us the B word, and having him not acknowledge us, also, it was that thing again. It was like, I'm not good enough. If I was pretty enough and special enough and clever enough and all of these enoughs, then he
Yes,
would have
yes,
acknowledged me.
yes.
So it's interesting. But these are the incredible things that make us who we are today.
Yes, and I think of it as the sand that makes the pearl.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally.
Love that. I love
Yeah.
that.
So was it? I know. Sorry, did you want to ask?
No,
something?
go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask. I know you went into the field of psychotherapy.
I
Was
did.
that a result of you having been in therapy yourself, or
Yeah.
was it something before?
It was an outcome of that, and
Yeah.
and noticing that I had an innate skill with being present with people, with being able to be there for them when they're going through difficult times, the questions to ask them to help them to have a breakthrough
Yeah.
just seem to come. They've always come to me quite effortlessly.
Yeah.
Yeah, And I've continued with studying. Now I've done some studying with trauma, and I'm a certified tapper, and I studied trauma release exercise, and I'm sort of wanted to go the next step to help people who has severe disconnections from themselves. One way of saying it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're still in private practice
Yeah.
as well
no.
as? Oh, I was
No,
gonna say,
I'm mostly doing speaking now. I do
Yeah.
a little bit of work one-on-one, and I am doing some tapping with the fire victims from Ojai.
What is tapping? Will you tell our audience
Sure.
what tapping is?
Yeah, sure.
Great.
Okay, so tapping is when you take two fingers and you tap on certain part of your body, and I do a new and improved form of tapping called faster EFT, invented by Robert Smith. It's not the original emotional freedom technique EFT. And so we tap above the eye, on the side of the eye, below the eye, on the collarbone, and then we take a deep breath in, let it out, and grab our wrists and say peace. So so what happens when you do that is that when you tap, you're telling your it's an acupressure point that gives a signal to the central organs to relax, and you do it simultaneously to thinking a fretful or of anxious thought. So you might have the thought, my dog died last week. So maybe, and then you give it a rate. Is it on a 6 or 7, an 8, a 9, a 10, a 2? What? Okay, so you think the stressful thought, notice what level, anxiety level you're at, and then you do a round of tapping and just saying to yourself, I let it go. It's safe to let it go. I can let it go now. Breathe in, breathe out, grab your wrist. Peace. And actually, you think the thought again, and the stress level is less.
Wow.
There's
It's
more
a
to
real mindfulness kind of focus is what it is. You're really focusing, and at the same time, it seems like you're literally tapping into your heart, into your mind.
Yes, but more than that, you're creating new neural pathways.
Exactly.
Because when your brain thinks the thought, my dog died last week, it's used to getting onto a pathway of stress. And if you're giving the body a signal of calmness and peace, that neural pathway actually breaks, and a new one has to be created.
Wow.
So you're actually changing.
know about
It's
this.
called neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
It's changing the way that the brain responds to different stimulus. So the thought is a stimulus. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
more
I-
than mindfulness. It's actually creating
new
a new way that
pathways.
It's
the
neuroscience.
Yes.
physiology can respond to
Wow.
those kind of stressful thoughts.
Yeah.
And the great thing about Faster EST is a lot of time after I do my intake, I'll ask the person at the very end, okay, now think of the worst memory you've ever had. You don't have to even say it out loud. And I can work with them with that memory. So we start with the most intense memory, because that's usually the one that has people caught up in all kinds of internal contraction, which is creating stress, which is creating disease, which is creating dysfunctional behavior, which is creating acting out.
Yeah.
Wow, and you just associate that into a positive instead. You just change that whole process.
Create a new pathway.
Yeah, new pathway.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we start with at the center of the target.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I was in therapy for many, many years, about 30 years.
Well, good for you.
I don't think I've had
Good
enough.
for
I
you.
haven't heard of. I mean, I've
And,
heard the term tapping. I just
yeah.
never heard the definition
Yeah,
of the term
I did
tapping.
it. It's
So-
very powerful.
It's very
Wow.
powerful.
Yeah,
Wow.
wonderful.
So going back to the turning point for you,
Yes.
when somewhere around, what were you going to say?
I want to hear about, you talked about your childhood,
Yeah.
but then also let's talk about your teens and some of the experiences
That's
you
what I
had
wanted
then,
to see.
and then on to college.
That's good, because it
Yeah.
leads up to
Yes.
Exactly.
what
Yes.
happened. So I'll just
Yeah.
tell that whole story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was getting to.
So in high school, I was ice skating a lot, and that was great. And the difficult part about high school, I went to a girls' school, but right next door there was a boys' school, and I hung out with a lot of popular kids, and they were all going on dates, and I wasn't. And so that was difficult. And then again, of course, the skating helped, because I did that on the weekends, and I had friends to do it with and stuff like that. So, but it still was still like, it still really pushed the button of I'm not enough.
Yeah.
Let's just say
of
it.
course.
Just
Yeah.
say it
Of
that
course.
way. And it was like week after
High
week
school.
after week after week after
Yeah.
week, you know.
But
And
again, that when you said, that each obstacle has a gift in it, you
Yes.
tell us what that gift was, because that's amazing too. What you got out of that experience?
well, what I got out of that experience at that time was a lot of suffering.
Oh.
It wasn't
Yeah.
until many years later
Exactly.
that I had a breakthrough. I mean, one of the silver linings, I guess, at that time was that I developed a personality and I developed people skills that were more finely attuned than other people,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
I could relate to people, and I actually had a lot of male friends. And it was the just friends kind of syndrome kind of thing.
And that's
because-
very hard at that
because
time.
of my
Very
physical
hard.
difference. Yeah, it was really hard, and I know they loved me, and they still love me, and I still have some of those friends. And in college, is sort of repeat performance, but a little bit more intense because, now people are sleeping
Bigger.
together, and there's more time to be together, and you're away from home, and all that stuff. So,
Sure.
and I had a big heartbreak in college, and so going back to what transformed it. So then I ended up actually moving I started some therapy with Anna Halperin up in Marin County.
Wow.
I don't know if you,
Yeah, I
you know
definitely.
of her. She's the most fantastic person. She had another amazing gift in my life. And she sort of, just through the dance, and like she'd ask us to dance shoulder to shoulder or hip to hip. And every time I had to match my body up with someone, I went into huge collapse of deficiency, something's
Anxiety.
wrong with me, something's wrong with me, and it so put the issue in my face that it was the first time in my life that I couldn't pretend that I was not a little person. So that was a sort of a wake-up time, and it was a very challenging year, and it was my Saturn return. I don't know if you guys know about that, but it was a very
Wait, how old were you at this point?
28.
28. Okay,
Yeah,
so
very transformational year, and so that was sort of the beginning of the thing of okay, there's this sort of thing that I have that is getting in my way and is making my relationships dysfunctional. And anyway, so I was having a lot of brokenheartedness and getting myself reeling myself up into relationships that were impossible. Of course, I'm going to get pushed to the side or something like that. So keep going down the road, and by the time I'm 30 or in my early 30s, I moved to Kona, Hawaii, and I'm living there, and it's beautiful, and it's, I live with my friends on a fruit and flower farm, and we're growing our food in the community. It's everything. We're going to the beach. Everything's perfect, and something inside of me was happening that was very different. And what was happening was I was waking up in the morning, and all I was thinking about was, how am I going to end my life?
Oh, okay.
That this time, by this I'm in my mid-30s.
I was
and
just going to say.
I've had a couple more big heartbreaks, and I'm just
You were just over it. You were saying, that's it. I can't go forward
Yeah.
anymore. If this pattern's going to keep happening.
exactly, and it's too painful. I don't want to do it anymore. And also, I didn't tell my career experience, which was that I went all the way through school. I went to college, and after I did college, I had a restaurant 2 years, and then I decided to make my hobby, which was
Hang on one second.
Wait, go back.
Took too fast.
You had a restaurant in Hawaii.
No,
Where?
in my college town.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, but
you owned one.
Even before that, though, I know that. What did you study at college, and what did you did? How many
Yes.
years? The photography.
Yes.
Talk about that.
Yes. Well, I also was very fortunate. I started meditating. I started doing transcendental meditation when I was 17. When I was 18, I found myself living in Fairfield, Iowa, going to a college where everyone did TM. And that was a great thing because it was sober, and everybody was present, and everybody was happy because they were rested. There was very, very little stress. Of course, you don't have very many responsibilities at that time in life, so it was a very high time. And so I got an education that was grounded in the idea that consciousness is the field of all possibilities. And this was such a fantastic thing for me, which meant there was no limitation about who I was, what I could do, or what I could accomplish in my life. So it was really, and also just to think about anything that you think about, that it is the field of all possibilities, and that things rise up out of the ground state, that something comes out of nothing, and this is how creation is, and this is how we create our life, that we go to the transcendent, and from that place thoughts arise, and then we take action on those thoughts, and we create our life from that.
Yeah, we talked about last week on our show, we talked about following the thread. which was something that Del's son had mentioned to her, in that things, it's like almost a snowball effect, in that you're compelled and motivated to meet it, to keep, if you so choose,
Yes.
to keep moving forward, and that's how you make progress in excelling your life to where your authentic self is meant to be.
Yeah, I just did a TED Talk on there's a reality show coming up called Awakening Giants. It's going to be aired probably starting in November this year. It's for transformational leaders, and I went on this week-long thing of one difficult task after the next, and the last task was doing a TED Light talk, and the name of my talk was Take Your Next Best Step, and it was exactly that. It was like following the challenge that's in front of you, because life brings you the challenge that will help you develop into your full potential.
Yes, that was our conversation last week, and
Beautiful.
it's so true, and it's just so lovely, because people get so inspired by people's true stories that have actually walked the walk and are here to talk about it. So we want to keep on your path of how you got and where you're at now, of course.
So I wanted to
go ahead.
Just back at college, I know you studied photography,
I did.
and because you're an amateur photographer, and then you said once you got into the college and the equipment really became.
This was
a challenge.
This was my okay. So just to
guess.
distinguish, I went to college twice. I did get a degree from MIU in education, and then about 2 years later, I went to Art Center College of Design in Pasadena. And that was when, so I knew I had a skill and a talent. I have a good eye. I had a good portfolio. I was able to get into this really hard school, hard to get in, harder to stay in. And I had a challenge because all the equipment is like, I was using a 4x5 field camera, which is like the size of I would say a 25-inch television, but people don't even know what that means anymore. So like a huge cooler.
Yeah.
That's like the size of my TV. The size of my camera.
Yeah.
And I had to lug it around in these big tripods and heavy metal stands and little studio lights that were bigger than my body. And it was really hard. And every semester I wanted to drop out. And I told my friends I'm dropping out. And they're like, no, just get your degree. Then you're in like Flynn. And I said, okay, I'll do it. I just kept telling myself I could do it. And I toughed it out. And a month before I was going to graduate, the dean called me into his office just to inform me that nobody was going to hire me because I was a little person.
Hi.
After
Wow.
being
And
there all this time.
What a setback. So wait, so how did you handle that?
I didn't handle it well. I believed him. And I started to tell myself, I'll never get hired. And it actually then ended up not being the dean that was the person who broke my dreams or shattered my dreams. It was me.
Absolutely.
Because I kept repeating that voice, I'll never get hired. And it just...
You gave it a life.
I gave it a life, and it beat me down to a pulp. I ended up... That's why I moved to Hawaii. I dropped out. Lived on a farm, had this whole life that was very small. And that was at that point between the not being able to get my career going and not being able to get my romantic life going, that I was just like, I lost hope.
Yeah.
And that's when you woke up in Hawaii the one morning. Let's take it from
One
there.
morning,
What-
lots of mornings.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of mornings. And when they were tear-filled and these thoughts would go on, and I just knew that wasn't the right choice. I just knew that wasn't the right choice. And so I kind of prayed, and I didn't really pray back then, but I prayed for some kind of help. And then a friend came within 2 weeks. A friend showed up and told me about this spiritual work school called the Diamond Approach. It's centered in Berkeley, California. They had another center in Boulder. And they had a teacher that came to Maui. I went there, I did a workshop, and I had this experience of being everywhere, being everything and everywhere. I had this experience of the transcendent inside all of the cells of my body. I was like, this was the first weekend. I was like, oh my God, this actually has enough Ajax to work on the tar that I've got around my heart and then I've got around my brain.
I like the analogy.
Yeah.
Ajax and tar.
Exactly. And it worked. And so then a couple years later, I'm going to tell you my breakthrough story now.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yes,
absolutely.
We're leading up to that.
So I'm in the school and I'm having some good breakthroughs, and each time I'm like, I go there or I have some experiences, I'm getting more and more of an idea of, I'm getting more and more experience of myself beyond this physical body and my conditioning. But then one night I had a very sort of life-changing experience. And I went to the class. There was a bunch of pillows in front of my chair. There's a bat, and I was encouraged to do a therapeutic form of what I call, or Anna called, the monster dance, which is to let out all of your anger and frustration through hitting the pillow and screaming and saying what's really in your you've been holding down, what's in your belly, what's in your heart, what's in your throat, you've been holding down. Here's a chance to actually let it rip. Just give yourself permission to let it all out. And I focused on my challenge or my hurt about not being valued as a whole human being. And there was a lot of stuff that came out. And at the end, I did like 3 rounds of 45 minutes. At the end, I laid down and I closed my eyes. And when I did, I saw something there that changed my life.
What did you see?
I saw a diamond. And it wasn't like a diamond you wear on your finger. It was bigger than my entire body. Actually, I could see it. It was above my head.
Right.
It went all the way down to the tips of my toes. Light was streaming out from the center. The facets, it had all these facets glistening. There was like rainbow colors. And it was very silent in that moment. And I just had a moment of being free. And I, in that moment, recognized that this is who I really am.
Yeah.
That my body, my personality, my history, all these ideas about who I am is some layer of who I am, but my foundation, who the truth of who I am, is this part that is beautiful, precious, and valuable.
That is so incredible.
Wow, what an awakening.
Yes.
Everybody should go through that.
No,
but,
Yes,
I
they
mean,
should.
But what's amazing to me is I had the same experience.
Oh my God.
I did a lot of the
Hitting.
hitting, and I did a lot. I have a master's in spiritual psychology, and I had a breakthrough moment just like that. And it was this giant, great big shard of glistening, multifaceted. I didn't call it a diamond though. I thought it was sort of a
crystal?
a crystal or an angel or something.
But
But
it's a bright light that
but-
shines on you is in its
But that's
form
amazing.
in your mind.
Exactly, it's amazing, and same thing. I mean, it's life changing for me. And everything you just described is exactly.
At what can I ask you? What point in your life did that happen?
It was at USM. It was during
So
one
it
of the USM weekends.
okay.
I graduated in 2008, so it's probably 2008.
okay, like 10 years ago.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it was. But it's what's so shocking to me, or surprising to me, or beautiful to me, is that we can have the same experience. It's accessible to everybody.
It is accessible. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful point. And I just
Yeah.
want to clarify, Debbie, you said that the light shines on you. It actually is the light shines from you.
From you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I
Yes.
haven't had the experience, but now I want it.
Well, you can.
I need it. I can tell you that much. I need to hit that pillow, boy. Boy, oh boy. But well, that's a whole other show.
Yeah,
Wow.
my muscles, I don't know about your muscles, but in my back after doing that, I mean, I was in agony. I mean, I hit so hard for so
Good,
long. I
good.
mean, it was like the best
I
workout
need that.
I've
good.
ever had.
I need that. Boy,
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
So.
Yeah, because we're up against time, and
Yeah,
there's
so-
so
yeah,
much to you, so many parts. So the breakthrough came, and now we've got to get to how you got on the path to where you sit
yes,
today.
where you
literally.
have all these
Yes.
other people.
Yes.
So it was from that experience that I started to change my life. And I started to look at my behavior, and I started to make different choices about relationships, different choices about my career, different choices about a lot of things that actually set me on the path where I was winning instead of losing. And I was getting more reinforcement of a positive. And a friend of mine invited me to the National Speakers Association's national conference. She had recognized that I had a gift with my ability to articulate, and which was very beautiful that she recognized that in me and actually invited me. And I went there. I came home. I wrote a brochure, and within 2 or 3 weeks, I was hired for $50. I went and spoke at the University of Colorado. I was living in Boulder at the time.
Telling your story. This is
And
what you were speaking on.
I-
Telling
yeah,
your story to help inspire others
Yes,
to
yes,
step up and
yes.
follow their dreams.
Yes,
'cause-
and so this was the beginning of sort of finding my inner power.
Okay,
And
yes.
so it's like that diamond, actually, the inner experience of the diamond let me know that there are many, many resources within myself. And the diamond is certainly the strongest, right? It's like This is a very strong, right?
And,
so
and diamonds have a lot of different angles and sides and ways that they shine. You know, it's not just one flat thing.
like us, we're
exactly.
these
Right.
multi-layered,
Absolutely.
multifaceted, and
Yes.
multi-dimensional beings,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah. So I actually started to teach people about some of the things that I did to help me to have that shift. And so recognizing taking time and making a practice to look into one's inner self and to recognize one's inner value is one of the main things that I would say if you want to find your inner power. Take some time to close your eyes and say to yourself, I'm the greatest. And just keep saying it until that light starts shining out in all directions, until you see, or even go in your heart. And when I go to I teach a lot of elementary school students. I've taught over like 100,000 about anti-bullying.
Oh, wow.
And at the end of the program, after I give them some techniques about how to be kind, I have them learn how to go inside themselves and see a diamond in their heart, and to, when they have a difficult day, to close their eyes in bed and remember that they are valuable as a diamond. Nobody has. They are responsible for their happiness, and they're the authority on their worth.
Wow.
They
How
get to-
powerful.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And that also, I
Absolutely
mean, and a lot
amazing.
of those children, if you hadn't have had the ability to reach them, they become not just experience being bullied, but they become bullies because
Yes,
their lack of self-worth
exactly.
is so low that they have to sort of diminish others around them.
Well, yes, I
So-
think that's the kids that get bullied at home.
Well, they're not
They-
feeling
that-
loved.
that-
They're not feeling self-worth.
Yes,
Somebody's
and the parents are
giving
control
them a hard
freaks
time.
or
Yeah.
being abusive or whatever.
Sure.
And then
Absolutely.
they come to school and they want to feel better about themselves, so they take it out on the little weak.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's very, very hard to be kind when others are not kind to you.
This is-
and
this
it's,
is
and it's
an
you know it's almost
understatement.
taught,
Yes.
and especially at a young age when we're sponges and we're
Yeah.
absorbing, and we see our parents fighting with each other. What are we learning? We're learning to fight and have battles over things, and they're saying mean things to each other. So what do? We go to school and we do that with our friends, our teachers, and nothing's good. We're in the negative, not
Yeah.
the positive.
Yes.
So,
It's-
sorry.
No,
Did
well,
I cut
all
you
I
off?
was going to say is it's almost an epidemic when you see what's going
Oh my
on
God,
today.
it's
So
yeah.
with someone like you going in the schools, how important? I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's amazing and wonderful that you're
Yeah.
doing what you're doing.
Thank
Catch
you.
them at an early age. That's where
Yes,
you have to do
exactly.
the cutoff.
Exactly. Yeah, it really is. So I know that there's a couple of points that you do. You talk about the importance of finding your inner power,
Yes.
which obviously is we've touched on that because look how it dramatically shifted your life once
Yes.
you found that,
Yes.
and the benefits of that. And you mentioned some of the downsides to not expressing that inner power. I mean, depression, I'm sure, but you mentioned a
Yes.
few
And then-
others.
Well, I think the biggest thing of not getting in touch with your inner power, and certainly this pounding of the pillows or punching the gym bag or beating a drum or creating some songs or music. I mean, creativity is a great outlet for your anger and frustration, but afterwards, after you express it and release the anger, to then feel inside to what's happening now, because when that gunk is moved aside, there's a clearing, and when you have the clearing, you connect with this deeper part of yourself. And
You have to be conscientious of that because if you don't, you could clear and just keep moving
Exactly.
on, and it will all kind of manifest itself again,
exactly.
right?
So the actual reflection after the expressing and releasing is the most important part, to just let yourself say, okay, what's here now? And usually you'll feel space, you'll feel peace, you'll feel power, you'll feel strength, you'll feel clarity, will, all kinds of things. And so this is all, to me, what I incorporate into what I call inner power.
Yeah.
So, and there are lots of ways to get there. And another thing, I forgot your question you asked me.
Well, no, you you mentioned some about the downside.
We were
of
talking
not-
about
the
we've been talking
downside.
about benefits,
Yes.
but what are the
Yeah.
not to tapping into?
Yeah, so I think that being in abusive relationships, number one.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Abusing yourself with
Abusing
alcohol,
yourself.
drugs.
Yes, exactly. Also, this whole thing in the workplace that women are a minority, they get paid less, they get interrupted,
And they believe it.
don't give space for them, their ideas get stolen, all of this stuff. So women really have to take a stand, connect with their inner power, and start to step up, stand up, and speak up.
Yeah.
And this
Now
is
more than ever.
so important. And of course, this ties into the Me Too.
Time's
Sure.
up.
It's and all of
movement.
that
Yeah.
because and for women to know that it's okay to be powerful.
Yeah.
That it's okay to be strong. It's okay to say no. It's okay to set boundaries. And if something happens, it's for the best. I mean, if you end up losing your job, like, who wants to work with those jerks anyway?
Right,
Yes.
that aren't willing to pay you your
Yeah.
worth. That
Ex-
aren't willing
exactly.
to hold
Yeah.
you down and
Exactly.
So, what
keep
are
you.
some of the tips that you can? Because this is a process too.
Sure.
I think. I
Yes.
mean, a lot of people or women might start to speak up and then get shut down and then stay shut down.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
knowing it's a process and exercising it like a muscle. So we've got a few more
About
minutes, so you can
6
yeah.
minutes,
No,
7
yeah.
minutes?
Okay.
We've got time. So talk about exactly. I know you share these tips with how to empower
Yes.
yourself.
Okay, great. So one of the ones that I'm going to start sort of with the easiest ones.
Yeah.
So I think that the one of the easiest one is your breath.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and that's always available to us. That we can always take a deep breath in.
You
If
have no
somebody-
life without it.
Exactly. And it is actually
Breathing
so
is life.
empowering when you bring your breath all the way down to your belly and you let it out with a ha or whatever. And just doing that, ha, that is an empowering. That elicits power from within yourself. And even if you do it 3 times, ha, ha, ha. You know, that's
Right.
a really
Some
great
strength.
thing. You can add stomping your feet. You can, you can add moving your fists. This all elicits strength from the inside. So that's one thing. Amy Cuddy, I don't know if you've seen her TEDx talk. She wrote a great book called Presencing, and her whole thing is that you can actually take the stance of power, and it elicits
Yeah.
power.
This
Yeah.
is where
Yes,
you do the
exactly.
Wonder Woman
Wonder
stance.
Woman
Yes, I've
stance.
heard of this.
Excellent.
Yes.
Yes, planting your feet
I'm one- I'm-
apart, and
Yeah.
you stand and you puff your chest out, and you either put
Yes.
your hands on your hips or
heard
you
of
put
this.
your arms in victory, and you
I can do this. You tell
Yes.
yourself that you can
Yes.
move forward
And
and
to-
just
Fabulous.
3. I'm going to give the spiritual mantra too. 3 mantras I love there are, I can do it, I'm the greatest, and I'm connected to everything.
Perfect. I
Yes.
love that. Absolutely.
Yes.
And you do that,
Connected
like,
to
before you
infinite
go
wisdom,
out.
divine source, everything. It's available to everybody.
Exactly.
I know
Yeah.
before I do any of my talks, before I get in front of an audience,
Yes.
I go even in a bathroom
Yes.
stall and I
was,
do that.
I
and
was doing
say-
it right out here
Oh,
when you
you
guys
were?
were doing
Oh, okay.
when you were getting ready earlier.
So
I was
funny.
out there
Before our
going,
very first show, I did it too.
Yes.
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
That's great.
It works.
It does work.
So,
very powerful.
Again, those 3 tips: your breath, your stance,
And
and,
then one more.
mantras.
And yes, and I'm going to say also to add to that, to silence your critical voice. I
Yeah.
think this is one of the most important things, is listening for the negative voice that's saying, I can't, I'm not enough, try harder, I'll be okay if I only do this. When that voice comes up, to just stop. Say stop, silence it, and then either come back to the present moment or fill it in with, I am the greatest.
Yeah.
Okay, because it
Fabulous.
is constant that kind
Yes.
of thing comes
Yes.
up, right? Because we
Yes.
watch TV, we're watching the greatest athletes, we're watching the greatest commentators, the greatest show hosts, whatever. We start to compare ourselves, and then all of a sudden that feeling of, I'll never get there, I'll never be that, I can't. It's
So
constant.
are there any more
So
tips?
is this a tip that that because it's every day?
Yes. So
It's
when
an everyday
so,
challenge.
So as soon as you hear that, you want to, and so you have to pay attention. That's
Sure.
first thing, awareness. Pay
Okay.
attention to your thoughts. When you hear the thought, you say stop.
Yeah.
You command
Every
the voice
single,
to
so
stop.
it could be 100 times a day.
It could be
Yeah.
100 times a day,
Okay.
but as you practice, it's less and less.
Okay, got
And
it.
when you hear your friend saying something negative, you say, no negative self-talk, my friend.
Yeah.
And you say that to yourself.
Yeah.
Because we're always
Yes.
competing with everything
Exactly.
in
I mean,
life. It's
I
always a
sometimes-
competition.
Yeah, sometimes
Yes.
I see, it's like your child or your inner child. You would never speak to your child like that.
Exactly.
You'd never beat them up and tell them they're worthless and they can't do it.
Yeah.
But we do it
to
to
ourselves all the time.
Exactly.
And
All
it's,
right.
the mind is
so
so
are
powerful.
there any more? I love these tips. These
Yes.
are great.
Well, we talked about the
breath.
the
Oh, yeah.
breath. We talked about
Stance.
stance. We talked about the
Mantras.
mantras, and then silencing the critical voice.
Yeah.
Another one would be what I mentioned earlier, is reflecting on your true value.
Yeah,
And paying attention, acknowledging yourself is also another
Absolutely.
really great one.
And when you say reflecting, this is thinking about it, talking to yourself about it, writing it down.
yes, all of that, but mostly I was referring to visualizing the diamond inside, to really taking some moments each day to go close your eyes, go inside, and see a brilliant diamond in your heart shining in every direction, and knowing that that is your value.
Absolutely.
And acknowledging to yourself that I have value, I'm as precious as this diamond, and that is what breeds confidence. That's what breeds clarity. That's what breeds making good decisions. It's like that's the fertilizer, so that all that
I have
can
my
happen
clients
naturally.
actually keep, we all knew to have a gratitude journal, because it's very hard when
Yes.
you feel grateful
Yes.
to be upset
Yes.
in life. But what I
Exactly.
also have them do is keep an acknowledgement journal.
Very good.
Where they just acknowledge certain
Yes.
things about themselves, like 3 things during the day, and it can be as minuscule and as great as you want, but it's just to stay in that acknowledging the aspects about yourself that you want to just keep having to flourish and grow and
Yes.
not go into
You
the
have
negative.
that I am exercise
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
which I think is really
But
potent
I want
and
Debbie's
important.
I'm sorry,
Peggy's.
Peggy's tips
Yeah.
right now. So,
Okay.
any more there?
Well, I'm going to give a couple of tips on how to speak up and be heard.
Yes,
Because I think
brilliant.
that is another skill that really helps people to be in their power. I know for myself, before I started speaking up, people just assumed that, a lot of people assume with whatever their projection about little people,
Sure.
that we're not as intelligent, we're not powerful, we're not okay to be authorities, whatever, we're not okay to be winners. It's like, you're on the outside, we're on the inside, all of that. But once I started speaking up, then it totally started to change.
Absolutely.
So I have a free gift on my website. Anybody can go there and get a little card, or there's an audio tape on these 6 points I'm going to get, and it's called How to Be 6 Steps to Being Heard Above a Room Full of Men. And the 6 steps are to be confident, to take that stance, to remember your value, and to walk with a stance of a posture of confidence, and to be confident. The second one is to be clear. When you speak, know what you're going to say, and say it as clearly as possible. And the third one is be concise, to not ramble on and on and on about different things, and to be humorous. Always helps to
Yes.
be humorous. To be smooth, which means to not take every little small thing that happens and make a big deal out of it. Some of it you let roll off your back. And the last one is to be bold. Say some outlandish shit.
I love that.
Yeah, love it.
It's so funny. As
How-
you're speaking, it's so funny. I even noticed sitting here, my posture, I sort of was like, I just
You
started
just pick
getting,
ourselves up.
I just
Those
started
are-
feeling,
Those are like those 6 things have to be memorized, really,
Yes.
because
Yes.
any one of them could sort of make you slouch a little down, and then you have to.
Yeah.
you
So
can-
let's
and
go
one of
through them
would
again.
pick you up.
We've got
Yeah.
a few more minutes to
Oh.
go through them again. Just name them.
Okay.
Confidence, you said?
Confidence, clarity. No, be confident, be clear, be concise, be funny,
Yeah.
be smooth, and be bold.
Be bold. I love that.
And as I said, if you go to peggyspeaks.com, right there's a button that says get your free gift, and you can get that as a printout. And
Carry it with
Brilliant.
you.
I'm
refer
going
to
to be
it.
clicking on that. I'm going to put that one on my bathroom mirror. I love that.
I think it's a challenge too, though. Sometimes, I mean, like I think I can hit all those marks. I'm not very funny, so like I feel like I'd have to work on some of that, consciously, and which I would believe that most people would,
Yeah, but I think a lot of people, when they're in a business situation, they'll repress that funny side of themselves. But
Yeah.
it's actually
Yeah.
that part that people love the most.
do.
I mean,
Yes.
who doesn't love a funny person?
Exactly,
Right,
and
right,
especially
but-
like self-depreciating humor. I mean, if you didn't make a
Yes,
joke about yourself,
exactly.
everybody rolls with that
And-
one.
And,
Yeah.
and think about how many people that aren't really that great looking are really famous because they're so funny.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no.
they're
Right?
great to have around.
Right. Yeah, and they use themselves as
Like
their
John Belushi. I mean,
punchline.
come on,
Yeah,
like the funniest guy
Yeah.
ever.
yeah.
That's fun.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got 3 minutes left here. So you've shared so much wisdom, so it feels a little banal now to say your final words of wisdom. But if there was something to just really leave our listeners with, what would you say? I mean, you've given so many tips already, but just one little final piece.
thought.
Yes.
It is something that's pulled me out of the pit of hopelessness and depression many times when I've lost hope. And it is the notion and the knowing, actually, that my birthright is to be happy.
Yeah.
Everyone
Beautiful.
has that birthright. And if you find yourself caught in anxiety, fear, depression, all this illness, to just keep reminding yourself that My birthright is to be happy. My conditions don't need to be optimal.
Yeah.
I don't need to have perfect health, the perfect relationship, the perfect bank account. That I can actually exist as I am. I can accept my life as it is and experience joy coming from each the minute, most subtle and minute things. Just looking at someone's face, at seeing the way the smell of coffee when you open the door at Starbucks. I mean, it can be the smallest thing,
Yeah.
and noticing the joy that comes,
Yeah.
and know that your birthright is to be happy, and happiness is who you are, and you can have it if you just keep taking your next best step.
Exactly.
So
It's
lovely. So lovely. There's
beautiful.
no
I mean,
such thing as
it's
perfection. You
Well,
just
and
have to
also-
find the happiness
Yeah.
within you.
Exactly,
To keep
regardless of
moving
your
forward.
external circumstances, because the circumstances are always going to change.
Yes,
but
right,
having
that's
that
life.
stability.
That means you're alive.
Yes.
Yes, and
yes.
that and the challenges, and this is another main thing that I teach about. If I have 30 seconds,
You do.
Challenges are there to help you grow. They're
Absolutely.
not there to make you suffer. They're not there to punish you. They are there as this. Okay, it's like holding the challenge is like. It's like a carrot on a stick saying your potential is greater. If you go through this challenge, you're going to develop new skills, new capacities, you're going to understand more about yourself.
with it.
Yeah.
You'll understand more of the truth of life, and you'll be this amazing human being if you just go through the challenge and transform.
I love that.
Yeah,
We're going to end on
this
that
is
note.
Just so great.
Yeah.
Just so great. And
Thank
we
you
thank you
so
for your
much,
time
Peggy.
coming all this
Oh.
way. Like I said in the beginning.
Yeah.
What powerful words.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great
Amazing.
message.
Thank
We hope
you.
everybody just takes heed to
Yeah.
what Peggy had to say today.
Go on the
because it's
website,
really-
get that
Yes.
lovely printout of the 6 tips and
Yeah. PeggySpeaks.com.
PeggySpeaks.com.
And yes, you do.
Yes.
Thank you.
Beautifully.
Thank you so
Beautiful.
much,
Thank
Peggy.
you.
It was a delight to be here
Thank
to
you.
enjoy the beauty of you two and your beautiful eyes shining at me. It's like so easy.
The light. We
Yes.
have good lighting on us. Thank you.
No, good light coming from you.
Yes. Yes. All,
That's
we've
right.
all-
I'm working on that.
Yeah. All our inner diamonds are sparkling.
Yeah. See, I have it. It's coming. I didn't, but I'll have to go through the
That's
whole thing.
wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank
Peggy.
you. Thank you.
Okay.
And we'll see everybody next
Next week.
week
Yep.
for Debi's Mind, Body, Soul. And we thank you for your time. Go to our Facebook page, make a comment, find us there, ask Peggy a question if you need to, and she'll get back to you, we promise. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
you. Bye.
To let myself go is the only way